8 years ago, I worked at a Hot Topic in a mid-sized mall that smelled like Cinnabon, Axe body spray, and poor decisions. I was 24, had just graduated with a degree in communications that communicated absolutely nothing to employers, and needed a job. Any job. Hot Topic called me back within 2 days of applying. I remember thinking, yeah, alright, let's lean into the black t-shirt phase of my life. Surprisingly, it was a great gig. The managers were chill, co-workers were weird in the best way, and even the customers, at least most of them, were just happy to be somewhere they could buy Nightmare Before Christmas socks and anime hoodies without judgment. We had regulars who were genuinely cool. There was this one girl who'd show up every Friday just to buy a new Funko Pop and talk about obscure horror films. Another guy came in weekly wearing a full-on cloak and combat boots. No one batted an eye. It was that kind of place. For the most part, it was fun. The kind of part-time job where you could lose hours folding t-shirts while arguing over whether Gerard Way was a better frontman than Brendan Urie. But of course, no story about retail is complete without the weird stuff, and in my case, 2 moments stand out like a Marilyn Manson poster in a Sunday school. The first? It's burned into my memory like eyeliner on a sweaty Warped Tour kid. It was peak Twilight era. And when I say peak, I mean grown women, like someone's suburban wine mom, would come in looking for Team Edward or Team Jacob merch and then start flirting with the teenage mannequins like they were real. One woman literally asked my 17-year-old coworker if he sparkled in the sunlight too. He dropped the box of keychains he was holding and hid in the stockroom for half an hour. But the second moment, the one that changed how I saw people and maybe even myself, started at the job interview. A group interview, because Hot Topic was nothing if not theatrical. And that's where things got dark. The group interview had maybe 6 of us, all crammed into this tiny break room that smelled like dryer sheets and burned incense. The manager leading it was this super laid-back guy with green hair and a lip ring. He started off with the usual stuff, "What's your favorite band? If you could be any mythical creature, what would you be?" You know, classic Hot Topic icebreakers. Then came the real question. Tell us about a difficult customer service moment you've had, and how you handled it. Most people gave predictable answers. One girl talked about working at a movie theater and dealing with a guy who threw popcorn at her because his seat was sticky. Another dude said something about calming down a Karen at a GameStop. And then there was him. This guy, he looked like he crawled straight out of a My Chemical Romance video. Fingerless gloves, trip pants with 1,000 useless zippers, black eyeliner so thick it looked like he applied it with a Sharpie. His name was, let's just say, Derek. He smiled, leaned forward like he'd been waiting for this question, and dropped the bomb. One time, when I was working at this bookstore, a customer said my style looked kinky and weird. So I punched her in the face. Dead. Silence. Like, the air left the room. Even the manager raised his eyebrows like, did this guy just confess to assault during a job interview? Derek didn't even flinch. Just sat back, arms crossed, like he was proud of himself. I glanced at the other applicants. Everyone was either avoiding eye contact or staring at him like he was a raccoon that wandered into a Chuck E. Cheese. Nobody said anything. The interview moved on. I never saw Derek again. Didn't get hired, obviously. But that moment stuck with me, not just because it was unhinged, but because it was the first time I realized how performative retail can be. You think you're there to sell merch, but really, you're just trying to survive the wild cast of characters that show up every shift. And that should have been it. A weird story for parties, right? But I didn't know it then. That moment was just the opening act for something way more personal. Way messier. Something I never thought would happen at a job that sold band tees and anime wallets. Her name was Lex. Short for Alexis, but she hated being called that. Lex sounds cooler, she said the first time we worked together. Like a comic book villain. I laughed, probably too hard, and she smirked like she knew it. She was part of the night shift, mostly closing. I got moved to that crew after my first 2 weeks, once they realized I wasn't going to fold t-shirts into triangles or steal the clearance pins. That's when I really got to know her. Lex had this sharp, magnetic energy. She wore too much eyeliner, chain necklaces that clinked when she walked, and had a way of making sarcastic comments that made even the customers like her. She was fast, always knew where everything was, had stories for every band on the merch wall, and could upsell you a pair of fingerless gloves like it was a survival tool. At first, it was just harmless flirting. We'd joke around during inventory, hide weird things in each other's lockers. One time she put a mini Edward Cullen cardboard cutout in mine, and share gum behind the counter like it was contraband. I thought it was just retail banter. You know, part of the job. Keeps the shift from dragging. But then she asked if I wanted to hang out after work. Just grab food, she said. I said sure. And that night? That was the beginning of the real story. The part that wasn't funny. The part that followed me long after I left Hot Topic. Because Lex wasn't just a coworker. She wasn't just a girl with killer eyeliner and a smart mouth. Lex was going to be the person who taught me what betrayal really felt like. That first night we hung out, everything felt easy. We hit up a diner near the mall, one of those places with sticky booths and milkshakes that came in steel cups. We talked for hours. Not about work, not about customers or store drama. Real stuff. Family. Regrets. Music that saved us when nothing else could. She told me she was taking a break from school. Said she was figuring things out, which at the time felt relatable instead of ominous. I walked her to her car around 2 a.m. She hugged me, longer than I expected. No kiss. But her eyes held something, I don't know, a dare maybe? A door cracked open. I drove home that night feeling like something had shifted. After that, we started hanging out more. Sometimes with other coworkers, but more often alone. My friends started asking if we were together. I'd shrug it off, but I was falling for her. Hard. And she knew it. The way she leaned against the counter next to me. The way she'd call me handsome when no one else was around. The way she'd slide me her playlist like it was sacred scripture. Then one night, under the humming fluorescence of the stockroom, she kissed me. No warning. No build-up. Just leaned in mid-conversation and pressed her lips against mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was it. I was done. Hooked. Stupidly hopeful. I started planning things in my head that I had no business planning. I thought maybe, just maybe, this was how something real started. Quiet. Unexpected. Lit by the pale glow of Funko Pops. I didn't know it yet, but I wasn't falling in love with her. I was falling for the version of her she wanted me to see. After that kiss, things moved fast. Not officially, we weren't dating, according to her, but we were inseparable. She'd come over after my shifts. Leave her hoodie on my chair. Eat my cereal and judge my movie choices. We'd fall asleep on the couch more nights than not. It felt like a relationship. It looked like one. Everyone at work treated us like one. Even our manager started joking about us being Hot Topic's power couple. But Lex had rules. Unspoken ones. Invisible lines I wasn't supposed to cross. Like I couldn't call her my girlfriend. She'd laugh it off like, why do we have to label everything? I couldn't post pictures of us. She said she hated social media. And I couldn't, under any circumstances, show up to her place uninvited. My space is sacred, she'd say, and I respected that. Thought it was quirky. Artsy. Trauma-informed or something. But the truth? Those rules weren't about boundaries. They were about hiding me. And I should have known. Should have seen it. But when you're in deep, when someone is filling a part of your life that's been empty for too long, you rationalize. You want to believe the best. So I chalked it up to Lex just being complicated. She told me I was different. That I'd made her feel safe, that I got her. And God, I clung to that like a drowning man with a piece of driftwood. Because I wanted to be that for her. I needed it to mean something. But things were about to shift, and when they did, I'd realize I wasn't the only one Lex made feel special. Not even close. It started with something small. They always do. We were closing together one night, just the two of us, restocking shelves and blasting my chem from the store speakers. Everything felt normal, easy, even. Until her phone lit up behind the counter. I wasn't snooping, I swear. It just buzzed loudly enough that it caught my eye. The screen flashed a name I didn't recognize, Jamie Skullfire, and a preview of a message that said, "Tonight was incredible. Still thinking about your laugh." Lex moved fast. Snatched the phone like it was radioactive, mumbled something about a friend from back home, and changed the subject so fast it gave me conversational whiplash. I laughed it off at first. Told myself not to overthink. She hadn't said we were exclusive. Maybe I was being possessive. Insecure. Whatever. But after that night, things started to shift, subtly, but unmistakably. She was on her phone more, and I wasn't seeing her outside of work as much. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd just shrug and say, "I'm tired. Work's been a lot." I told myself to give her space. People go through stuff. Maybe it really was stress. Maybe Jamie was just a weird, overly flirty friend. Maybe. And then one of our co-workers, Kayla, pulled me aside in the break room. She was blunt, always had been. Said, "Hey, I don't want to get in your business, but, do you know Lex is seeing someone else?" I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" She came into the mall on her day off. With some guy. Holding hands. They looked, together. I laughed. Literally laughed. Like a full, awkward ha, as if Kayla just told me the punchline of a bad joke. But she wasn't joking. And deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to face it. After Kayla told me, I spiraled quietly. I didn't confront Lex right away. I wish I could say I marched up to her and demanded answers like some confident protagonist, but no. I just observed. Took mental notes. Started noticing the patterns I'd ignored before. She was always busy now. Her text replies got shorter, colder. She stopped calling me pet names. At work, she still joked around, but it was performative, surface level, like she was playing a role and I was a prop in the scene. She never lingered after shifts anymore. No more late-night pancakes. No more movie marathons or random forehead kisses. It was like someone had flipped a switch, and Lex was still there, but the version I fell for had been replaced with a newer model. Slicker. Less attached. Emotionally bulletproof. And I felt stupid. Embarrassed. Angry at myself for being so invested in something that clearly didn't mean the same to her. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Kayla was wrong. Until I saw it with my own eyes. It was a Saturday afternoon. I came in early for my shift and cut through the food court to grab a coffee. And there she was, Lex. In ripped jeans and a hoodie I'd never seen before, holding hands with a guy in a denim jacket and Doc Martens. He leaned in and kissed her like he'd done it 100 times. She laughed. That laugh. The one she used to give me. They didn't see me. I stood there, frozen, watching the person I thought I knew become a stranger in real time. I wanted to scream. Or punch something. Or walk right up and ask her who the hell I was to her at all. But instead, I walked to the store, clocked in, and helped a 12-year-old find a Death Note t-shirt. Because in retail, heartbreak doesn't get you out of folding denim. That shift was brutal. It wasn't busy, which meant too much time to think. Every folded shirt felt like a slap. Every playlist song reminded me of a moment with her, ones that clearly meant more to me than they ever did to her. Lex came in halfway through. She was late, eyeliner perfect, hair up in that messy bun she knew drove me insane. She smiled at me like nothing happened. Like we were still us. And I smiled back. Because I didn't know how to be angry yet. Not with her. Not yet. We worked side by side in silence for a while, tagging clearance items. At one point, she handed me a box of Sailor Moon wallets and our fingers brushed. She looked up at me, kind of soft, kind of guilty, but didn't say anything. Just went back to work like nothing had changed. But everything had. That night, while we were closing, I cracked. It was quiet. The gate was down. Lights half off. Just the two of us, restocking the Nightmare Before Christmas socks for the 1000th time. I turned to her and said it, finally. "Lex, who's the guy?" She froze. Didn't even pretend to misunderstand. A beat passed. Then two. Then she sighed, leaned against the shelf, and said, "His name's Jamie. He's complicated. We've been on and off for a while." That hit like a brick. I stared at her, mouth dry. So what was this? She looked at me with those unreadable eyes and said something I'll never forget. "I thought we were just having fun." That sentence broke something in me. Because it wasn't just fun. Not for me. Not when I let her in. Not when she made me feel like I mattered in a way no one else had. I stood there, staring at her, sock in hand, realizing that every laugh, every night together, every stupid playlist, it was all real to me and just passing time for her. And the worst part? I didn't even walk out. I finished the shift. Because heartbreak, like everything else at Hot Topic, had to wait until the store was clean. I don't remember the drive home that night. I really don't. I must have hit every red light, or maybe none, I couldn't tell you. All I know is I walked through my apartment door, dropped my bag, and just stood there in the dark for a full 20 minutes, staring at the wall. Then I sat on the couch, picked up one of Lex's hoodies she'd left behind, and finally let it hit me. The betrayal. The stupidity. The audacity of it all. She didn't cheat on me, technically. Not if you go by the literal rules. We were never official. But that's the thing about emotional betrayal, it doesn't need a title to leave a scar. What killed me wasn't that she had someone else. It was that she let me believe I was the only one. And yeah, maybe that's on me. For falling so hard. For trusting someone who built walls and painted windows on them to make them look like doors. But I kept replaying everything, every conversation, every glance, every time she told me she felt safe with me, and I realized none of it was real. Not in the way it was for me. I called out sick the next day. Said I had a fever. Really, I just couldn't face her. Couldn't go in and act like I was okay. I spent the whole day lying on my floor, scrolling through our old texts, trying to find the moment, the exact moment, when she checked out. I never found it. And that made it worse. Because it meant she was lying with her eyes open. Smiling through it. Kissing me like I mattered. I didn't eat that day. Barely slept. Just laid there, feeling like a prop that had been returned to the stockroom, no longer needed on the stage. It took me a few days to finally gather the courage to go back to work. When I walked through those automatic doors, everything felt like it was moving in slow motion, like I was the only one frozen in time. The mall was busy, the music blaring, the constant murmur of people all around me, but I felt small. Distant. The store was packed, which made the situation worse. I hid behind the counter for as long as I could, folding shirts and pretending to be busy, hoping that somehow, some cosmic force would make Lex avoid me. But she came in just after the lunch rush. And there she was, the same Lex, eyeliner sharp, hair perfect, but this time, I could see through the cracks. I saw the guilt in the way she held her posture. The way she hesitated when she asked me how my day was. She was waiting for me to confront her. To say something. I didn't say anything at first. I just let the silence stretch between us, like an awkward bridge no one wanted to cross. But I couldn't hold it in any longer. Not after everything. I looked up from my folding pile and said, "So? Jamie, huh?" She paused, eyes widening just a little, but she didn't look surprised. Like she'd been expecting this moment. Her voice was low, almost apologetic. "It's not like that, okay? It's complicated." Complicated? I couldn't help the bitterness in my voice. You know what's complicated? How I've been here for the past month, thinking I mattered. Thinking we were something. Her expression shifted. She looked pained, like she was wrestling with words she wasn't sure she should say. I didn't mean to hurt you, okay? You're a good guy, but you didn't really think it was going anywhere, did you? It was like she'd slapped me, but with her words instead of her hands. I stared at her, my heart sinking. You think I'm that dumb, Lex? She shook her head. No. I just didn't know how to tell you. And right then, in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she got caught. I didn't say anything else. I couldn't. I turned, walked straight to the back room, and clocked out early. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't pretend I didn't know who she really was. The drive home that day felt different. More like autopilot. I didn't have the anger I expected. Or the relief I thought I'd get from finally confronting her. I was just numb. All I could think about was how I had spent the last few months building a story in my head that never existed. A story I believed in so fully, I ignored all the red flags that screamed in my face. Lex hadn't cared about me the way I'd cared about her. She never had. She had been playing a role, just like she had with every other guy. And maybe, deep down, I knew that the whole time. But when you want something badly enough, you convince yourself it's real. I didn't go back to Hot Topic for a while. I called out sick a few more times and eventually quit. Not because of Lex, not because of her, but because I realized that I didn't want to be around a place that made me feel like a backup plan. I didn't want to keep pretending everything was fine while my heart was breaking. And then came the text. She sent it a week later. It was simple, brief. I'm sorry. I should have been honest with you. I stared at it for a while, my finger hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to reply, to ask her why she felt the need to string me along, why she let me believe I was something more. But I didn't. I didn't owe her that. I deleted the message. I think that was the hardest part, the moment I realized I was finally letting go of the version of her that I had built in my mind. It didn't make the pain go away. But it made me realize that I didn't need her apology. I needed closure, and sometimes, you have to give it to yourself. I blocked her number, deleted her social media, and erased her from my life. Cold, yes. But it was the only way to move on. And even though it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, it felt like setting fire to the bridges between us. Burning everything down so I could walk away. It took a while to pick up the pieces. More than a while, really. I spent the next few months not thinking about relationships at all. I buried myself in work. Hung out with friends who didn't have a complicated, half-formed version of a love story attached to them. I went back to being just me, the version of myself that existed before all of this happened. It wasn't easy, though. I'd be lying if I said it was. Every time I'd go into a coffee shop, I'd look for her face in the crowd. Every time I'd walk by Hot Topic in the mall, I'd catch myself looking at the door, wondering if she was there. If she was thinking about me. If she was regretting everything. I didn't get answers. And that was okay. Eventually, I came to realize that I didn't need them. I started learning to do things for me again. No more thinking about what she'd like, what she'd want to do. It was about reclaiming who I was. I went on solo trips to places I'd always wanted to visit. I picked up hobbies I had put off for far too long. Even went to a concert alone, standing in the crowd with my arms folded, feeling the music in a way I'd never allowed myself to before. And, honestly, it felt good. It felt right. It was like a slow healing process, the kind that doesn't come with a quick fix but with time. The surprising part? The first real change I noticed came when I stopped thinking about her. When I let go of the weight of what we could have been and allowed myself to find peace with what had been. One day, about 6 months after all of this went down, I walked past a Hot Topic store. I glanced inside without really thinking about it. There was a new manager behind the counter. New people. New faces. The place didn't feel like mine anymore. And for the first time in a long while, I realized that I was okay with it. Maybe that's the thing about betrayal. You don't realize how much it changes you until you look back and see how far you've come from the person you were. It's not about getting revenge or holding on to anger. It's about learning from it and making sure you're not defined by someone else's choices. So, for anyone else going through something like this, don't wait for closure. Don't expect them to apologize or to give you the answers you're craving. Do what I didn't do. Take back your time, your peace, your life. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with yourself. Looking back now, I realize how much I've grown from that whole experience. It wasn't just about Lex. It was about me. About my own sense of worth, my own boundaries, and what I'm willing to tolerate. Because let's be honest, I let her get away with so much. I put her on a pedestal, giving her more credit than she deserved. And it wasn't because I didn't deserve better, it was because I was afraid of being alone. But that was the turning point for me. When I finally let go, I realized I don't need anyone to validate my existence. Not her. Not anyone. I don't need to chase affection or attention. It needs to come from a place of mutual respect, and if it's one-sided, it's not worth the investment. It took months to start believing that, but now, I look back on it all with a new perspective. Every broken heart, every misstep, every what if was part of me learning how to protect my energy. I'm not saying I'm perfect, that I have it all figured out now. But I'm more self-aware, more cautious about who I let in. And that's not a bad thing. You see, the hardest part of betrayal isn't the immediate pain, it's the aftermath. The rebuilding. It's the subtle changes that take place when you're forced to face your own emotions, to confront the parts of yourself that you neglected for the sake of someone else. That's where the real growth happens. For the first time in a long time, I don't feel angry at Lex anymore. Honestly, I don't feel much of anything about her at all. I've moved on. But the lessons I learned, the boundaries, the self-respect, the understanding of what a healthy relationship looks like, those are things I'll carry with me. And as for her? I hope she eventually learns those same lessons. But I'm not going to be the one to teach them. I've learned enough for both of us. It's funny how closure isn't this grand, cinematic moment like you see in the movies. It doesn't come with a dramatic showdown or a tear-filled confession. Sometimes, it just sneaks up on you. You look back, and one day you realize that the pain isn't there anymore. The weight you've been carrying has lightened. You're not over it overnight, but you get to the point where you know it's behind you. That's where I am now. A few weeks ago, I ran into Lex. It was in the most random of places, some dive bar that a friend of mine recommended. I didn't see her at first. I was sitting at a table with a couple of people, laughing, enjoying the night, when I felt someone's eyes on me. I looked up, and there she was. Standing across the room, with that same look, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. And I'll admit, for a moment, I froze. All those old emotions, confusion, hurt, betrayal, came rushing back. But instead of rushing over to confront her, I did something unexpected. I smiled. Not in a fake way, but in a genuine, calm way. I didn't need to prove anything. I didn't need to reopen old wounds. I didn't need her apology anymore. She waved awkwardly, but I didn't wave back. I just nodded, then turned back to my friends. She stayed where she was, and after a few minutes, I saw her leave. That was it. No conversation. No attempt to rekindle anything. And you know what? That was the best part. Because in that moment, I realized that I don't need to hold on to the past to move forward. I don't need to get those answers from her. The only thing I need to do is keep moving ahead, and trust that the future holds better things. Better people. I don't know if Lex will ever change, if she'll ever realize what she did. I'm not going to hold my breath on it. But I've made peace with it. I've closed the door, and I don't feel the need to look back. And I can finally say this with complete honesty. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. It's strange how life works out sometimes. How you go from thinking everything's falling apart to realizing it's actually falling into place. I never expected that from this experience. I thought I'd be stuck in this limbo of heartbreak, replaying the past over and over in my mind. But now, looking back, I see that it was the catalyst I needed to grow. I've learned a lot about myself. About what I want in relationships, what I won't tolerate, and how to recognize the signs when someone isn't being truthful. I've also learned how to be okay on my own. The biggest lesson wasn't in how I handled Lex or how I reacted to what she did, it was in how I learned to let go of the things that didn't serve me. It's a relief, really. To not be angry anymore. To not feel like I'm living in someone else's story. I'm not the victim here. I'm the guy who came out on the other side, stronger and wiser. Do I still think about her sometimes? Yeah. But it's more like a distant memory. A chapter in my life that I've closed and moved on from. I'm not haunted by it anymore. It doesn't define me, and I don't need it to. And that's the thing I tell anyone going through something like this: don't let someone else's choices control how you see yourself. Don't let their lies or their mistakes change your worth. You are enough. And you are worthy of love, honesty, and respect. If someone can't offer that, it's their loss, not yours. Now, I'm focused on the future. I'm dating again, but in a way that's healthier. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm enjoying the ride, learning to trust again, but most importantly, learning how to trust myself again. I know there are still challenges ahead. There always will be. But I'm not afraid of them anymore. I've faced the worst, and I came out on top. And that's the story of how I learned to stop looking back, started looking forward, and found peace with the person I am now. So, yeah. That's the tale of my hot topic heartbreak. It wasn't pretty, but damn, it was necessary. Stay strong, folks. You've got this.